once had a 3,000 square foot home. I wasn't happy. I have a 30 square foot shared living space, and I'm happy. I used to dine at restaurants 3 times a week in my best clothes. I wasn't happy. I have zero choice of my meals or what I wear, and I'm happy. I used to make $200 per day at work. I wasn't happy. I make 20 cents every 2 weeks, and that's not an exaggeration, and I'm happy. The culprit behind our satisfaction or dissatisfaction lives in here. It feeds messages to the conscious and subconscious. It colors events as either positive or negative. But there's a catch. There really is no such thing as a positive or negative event because all events are neutral until our viewpoints and perceptions give an event meaning. That's not to say an event's any less important than you deemed it to be. It just means the event had no meaning until you decided what you thought of it. Let's take, for instance, our free-range prison pigeons. You'll see them soon. These birds are so unafraid and unintimidated by human beings that they remind me of New York City pigeons. Hey, can't you see I'm walking here? You'll see some inmates feeding them out of their hands, other inmates who will literally kick a pigeon out of their way, and still other inmates who will scream if they fly close overhead. All of these reactions are based on the internal thoughts of each person at a neutral stimulus, the pigeon. The pigeon's just a pigeon doing pigeon things, right? A person's perceptions of a pigeon being a harmless, hungry bird, a devious, plotting pest, or an instrument of fear, it's all based in thought. Your thoughts are so incredibly powerful that studies have shown they will determine your quality of life. Prisoners of war, for example, have been through grueling, life-altering experiences. These men were tortured, they were starved, they were neglected, and threatened with their own lives. Some returned home to resume their lives, claiming minor bumps through their transition, but fared considerably well, given the circumstances. But others weren't so fortunate. Reports of consistent anxiety attacks, anger outbursts, and failure to emotionally reconnect with loved ones plagued this other set of POWs. So how could there be such a disconnect when all of these veterans experienced similar horrors? Enter our culprit. The returning soldiers who struggled the most revealed that during their incarceration, thoughts of sorrow, loss, and pain had dominated their psyche. The better acclimated prisoners of war had realized that although their captors had control over their physical bodies, they could not control their thoughts. These men commonly imagined happy, fulfilling futures and had gratitude for the lives they had already experienced. So thoughts can either be a source of strength or a source of weakness in determining your quality of life. Sorry, hold on, I'm not done yet. Sorry, just got nervous. All right. So, could your thoughts be keeping you prisoner? I know mine had been confining me for years. In 2011, my mom passed away at the age of 45 due to complications of a heart condition, leaving behind 4 children, the oldest of which is me. I took guardianship of my then 16-year-old youngest brother, and I proudly watched him grow into a man during the following years. But April 5th, 2015 was the day I got that phone call. My 2 brothers had left Easter Sunday brunch together to drive back home. I'm told they raced another driver, and due to whatever circumstances, my brother's car began to flip, landing upside down in a wash below the roadway, and my youngest brother was pronounced dead at the scene. My other brother, the driver, has since been sentenced to 3 years for involuntary manslaughter in the accidental death of our brother. My world could not have gotten any darker or smaller at that point, and I had the thoughts to match. I lived in misery, depression, and despair at the losses my family had suffered. I was lost in my own mind, which is a scary neighborhood to be in all alone. By not making the choice to change my thinking, I inadvertently chose to remain miserable. But what I didn't realize then was that I'm responsible for my own perspective. I could choose to continue serving a life sentence in my own personal prison, or I could accept what I couldn't change and begin the process of changing myself. But it turns out my thoughts were like a diaper, totally full of crap. So it started with small changes, like recognizing when I was having a negative thought, realizing when I was passing judgment on a person or situation, and intentionally choosing tomorrow's attitude the evening before. And then bigger changes, like accepting people and situations for what they are and never trying to change or control them. Asking myself questions like, what did this situation teach me? Or what can I learn from this situation? And keeping a happiness journal where every day I would write my happiest moment for the day plus one item of gratitude. But the key to making changes stick is through repetition. Thinking or doing something repeatedly actually alters the physical structure of the brain. Think of it like building a road. The thought pathways we create become roads, and through more repetition, those roads become highways. Soon, positive thinking is habit. Thoughts are energy, and energy is filled with vibrations, which are transferable. Japanese researcher Dr. Masaru Emoto gives us a beautiful example of this. After developing a photographic technique to capture the crystallization of water at the freezing point, Dr. Emoto tested whether projected feelings and thoughts had any effect on water. At one sample of water, he focused thoughts of love, blessings, good fortune, and then at the other, dark, hateful thoughts, and then photographed the results of each. The sample of water where positive thoughts were focused resulted in crystalline structures which were beautiful, harmonious, and symmetrical. Whereas the sample of water where negative thoughts were focused resulted in crystalline structures that were chaotic, ugly, and unsymmetrical. So it really makes you think, right? If the human body is made mostly of water, and 3/4 of our earth is covered with water, imagine the kind of impact that we could make just by changing our negative thinking. The power we have within our minds is limitless. If you choose a different thought, you can create a different reality. Your thinking is your place of personal power.